So welcome to the great Skinner pipe organ of Missouri United Methodist Church. This is a treasure. It's an organ unlike anything else in the state of Missouri and very unique even amongst pipe organs of the country. This fine organ was designed and built along with the sanctuary. So it was part of the architecture, part of the construction, part of the design. Sometimes churches have a building and then they add a pipe organ later, which sort of gets tucked into corners and isn't really necessarily part of the church. This organ is one of the greatest examples of the design, built right into the original architectural plans. What makes it special and unique is not only its size, but its quality. So at the time, the church congregation contracted with the Skinner Company of Boston, Massachusetts in the 1920s. Actually, the organ was, the contract was signed March 4th, 1929. The Skinner Company was considered the finest organ builder in the country. So it has the highest quality construction. Many people consider it to be the best, some of the best sounding pipes. It has this type of pipe organ could last hundreds of years with proper care. It will never wear out, other than a few replaceable parts. Other organs that were built more cheaply at the time or factory assembled, every organ is just like the next one. This isn't like this. This was handmade, handcrafted, perfectly designed for this church, for this sanctuary. So as I mentioned, it was ordered in 1929 and it was delivered in October 1929. It was first played at the first service in the sanctuary, January 5th, 1930. If you're interested in the cost at the time, my records show that the organ itself was $31,000, and that was the contract price in 1929. At some point they decided to add more facade pipes, which we can see. The facade pipes are the ones you see. Interestingly enough, some of them play, some of them are part of the organ, some of them are decorative, and they're false pipes. And it can be fun sometimes to look up and decide which ones do you think are real, which ones do you think are fake. So the additional facade pipes cost $1,271, so the total cost of the organ was a little over $32,000. If you plug that into an inflation calculator today, in today's dollars, it would have been about $550,000, which is a big sum in the 1920s. But if you remember the roaring 20s, was when a lot of people had a lot of money and the stock market was up. So the pledges to order the organ and to get the stained glass and the pews and everything else about this church, many people pledged a lot of money. But as you remember, what happened in 1929 was the stock market crash and the Great Depression in the 1930s. So most people could not fulfill their pledges. The organ had a 20% down payment. So $6,200 was given to the organ company in the year 1929. After that, the church was pretty much unable to make payments. The entire settlement was not until 1943. 1943 was when the sale of the Broadway church, and then the church congregation had enough money to pay at that time it became the Aeolian Skinner Company. So the organ was actually not owned by the church until 1943. In 1956, 57, it was enlarged, renovated, additional pipes were ordered. At the time, Perry Perigin, as some of you remember, was the long-term organist before me, was in charge of that. Then this new console you're looking at, this was brand new in 1995 with updated electronics and capabilities, but still the rest of the organ is still original from the 1929 and then the rebuild and the renovation in the 1950s. So as a large sanctuary, a large space, you need a large organ to fill it. People ask, well, how big is an organ, or how do you count how large an organ is compared to another one? The answer is usually the number of ranks or the number of pipes. Now a rank is like a set of pipes with all the same sound. It looks kind of like a flower box. It's long, rectangular, wooden, and each pipe sticks up like that. That's called one rank. So this church organ will have 54 ranks. It has 51 right now, but we have some additional pipes and ranks. They're actually being stored in the church right now, waiting for our organ builders to have time in their schedule but when the restoration is finished, it'll be a 54 rank organ. Small churches typically have 8 to 12 rank organs. Medium-sized churches maybe have 20 to 30 rank organs, and this is 54. Very few organs, there are some organs over 100 ranks, they'd be in the very largest spaces. And then the trivia is how many pipes does it have, because that's always impressive. How many pipes are you not seeing behind these pipes? When the renovations are done, the answer is going to be 3,456. That's easy to remember because it's 3, 4, 5, 6. So if anybody asks you, once the renovations are done, it'll be exactly 3,456 pipes. It's actually difficult to count the number of pipes. I've done it. It takes a long time to count pipes and keep them straight. This console that you can see part of now has drawn in. What makes an organ different from a piano is when you go to a piano and play a key, a sound comes out. And if you pick up a violin and you draw a bow across the string, a sound comes out. Same with a woodwind or a brass instrument. With an organ, you press keys down, nothing happens. There's no sound coming out because you have to use these things called draw knobs. Because the organ does not sound unless you decide, the organist decides which sound you want it to make. So I press some keys down, nothing happens until I pull this draw knob. Now there's a sound because I pulled the knob. Now a little magnet pulled the little leather valve away, and now the air pushes up through the pipe. In an organ pipe, the air comes up through the bottom, that's called the toe, a little narrow part in the bottom of the pipe. The air goes in there, then the sound comes out the little mouth, which is the horizontal opening. But the length of the pipe makes the actual sound, so the air column vibrates up and down within the length of a pipe. And as you might expect, the longer and larger the pipe, the lower the tone. And to remember that, if you think about like a violin is a small instrument with high-pitched sounds, and then a cello or a string bass is a larger string instrument, has lower pitched sounds. Or the difference between a trumpet and a tuba. Tuba has low pitches, trumpet has high pitches. So when you see a long, large organ pipe, you're going to be hearing very low notes. You can almost barely hear them. And then if you have a shorter pipe, you'd be hearing the same. So you hear the pitches are higher. So it's up to the organist to decide how to what's called register a piece of music. Again, it's not like a piano where you just sit down and start playing. When I have to play a piece, I have to decide which sounds do I want to hear. Do I want it to be loud or soft, more like a stringy sound? Or do I want to make it sound like an oboe? Or do I want something like a trumpet for a wedding? And there's all sorts of varieties. So an organ is almost like an orchestra in miniature. So I can play dozens of different sounds, and then the combinations lead to infinite combinations. So the sounds really are unlimited in a large pipe organ. You can combine, mix and match. You have lots of stops for louder sounds, fewer stops for softer sounds. You may not be able to hear it, but this is the softest pipe on the organ. It's very soft. And by contrast, this is the largest sound on the organ. So organs are not inherently loud or soft, it just has the potential for loud or soft things. So these are called draw knobs. There are 79 of them, so every time I sit down to play the organ, I have to decide which of the 79 I want to use. Then there are tilt tabs. There's couplers, there's 23 of those. There's 66 little pistons, which are almost like a preset combination. Like if I want to have the same draw knobs come out, I'll just press a piston. It's more convenient than pulling them out individually for each piece. Almost like an old-fashioned car radio where you just kind of hit the button which station you want. I can push a piston and get the sounds I want without having to go through and register each draw knob. Then you might be able to see the pedals on the organ. The pedals are like a keyboard. They've got white and black notes, just like a piano or an organ keyboard. The difference is you can only play them with your feet. So when I press an organ pedal down with my toes or my heels, you'll get the same sound. And you'll notice it's a lower sound. So the pedals of an organ typically are used almost like a tuba or a string bass of an orchestra, lower pitches that kind of support the sound. Because I could play a hymn like this. But if I add the pedals, it gives a richer effect. So that supports singing better. The other interesting things about the console is the electronics, and then it's got a few fun stops. Obviously, sometimes you hear the chimes. The chimes are not a pipe. It's not an organ pipe with air going in it. It's an actual tubular metal thing, and the hammer hits it and makes the sound. And that's located up at the top of the organ. Then we have a stop called a harp, and the harp is another, like a piano hammer hitting a horizontally mounted metal bar, like a xylophone. So it's got a couple of things in the organ that aren't pipes, but they do add to the sound. Then there's another addition called a Zimbelstern, which is a set of bells in a circle, and there's a rotating clapper, and it hits each bell kind of in sequence. And I just press the button. It's either on or off. Basically, I can't control it. It's just like a spinning clock, and that sometimes adds some variety to hymns, especially if you're talking about the Easter season or Christmas season. Sometimes the Zimbelstern adds a little something to it. The challenge of playing an organ, when anybody starts organ lessons, most people have taken piano lessons when they start organ. You don't have to, but a lot of people are pianists, and then maybe they want to decide to take organ lessons. So the keyboards are easy to learn. The only difference between a piano is a piano has a sustain. When you press a piano key, the sound continues to vibrate when you take your finger off the key. In an organ, it does not. It instantly stops. As soon as the key is up, the air stops, the sound stops. So in organ work, you have to learn to play legato instead of staccato. So you just have to learn some techniques to make sure each note is connected to the other one without sounding choppy where it won't sound as good. So learning the legato technique. But then the main thing is learning to coordinate your feet and legs. So you have to learn scales on an organ just like you would learning scales on a piano. So you can't just like bounce around and hit random notes. You have to decide, just like you're learning the scale on a, and I shouldn't be wearing sneakers, there's special organ shoes with heels, but so you have to learn to play scales, toe, heel, toe, heel, toe, heel. Sometimes you have to play two notes at once, or two pedals to get a melody. So learning to make your feet go up and down, it's just muscle memory. Like driving a car, when you first drive a car, you can't make the pedals, the accelerator and the brake don't make any sense, but after a while you get the sense of how to make the pedals work. So in the organ, you just have to make sure your legs and feet, and it does make it difficult because when you're playing the organ, you can see your piano, or most instruments, flute, you can see your hands. But on the organ, you can't see your feet. So I'm usually sitting like this, looking at the music, and I don't really know where my feet are. I can't see them. I can't look down, because if I look down to see where my feet are going, I would either take my eyes off the music or lose my place in the music. So a lot of times it's just learning kind of the sense of space. Where is that pedal? And that just comes with lots of practice, lots of experience. You know, people think the organ is just a church instrument to play hymns and sacred music, but actually the organ plays classical recital music that has nothing to do with church. There are people that play jazz on pipe organs. You know, you can make a pipe organ part of an orchestra-organ combinations are sometimes found. But you never get tired of a large pipe organ. It has so much variety, you never get tired of it, you never get bored. And with 4 different keyboards, I could be playing different ones at the same time with the pedals, so it keeps you busy. As opposed to most instruments where you're just you and the piano, or you and the flute, you and the violin. That's just all there is. With an organist has to control a large console and keep everything coordinated, be able to see the sheet music, see the notes, know what's going on with your stops, know what's going on with your feet. Then there's even expression pedals that make things softer or louder, which of course, since the air goes through the pipe volume is always the same, but the way organ makers make pipes be able to go from soft to loud and soft again is they have shutters, which are like Venetian blinds. And so when they're closed, the sound is in a wooden box. So you hear it softly. But when you gently push this pedal down like a gas pedal of a car, you push it, the shutters are opening little by little. And now they're fully open. So now it's the same pipe, same air pressure, everything's the same, but now I've opened up the shutters, you're hearing more volume. So part of the fun of an organ is you can not only adjust volume by number of stops you pull, the more stops the louder, but also how you work the expression pedals, as they call them. There's a very large blower located in the attic of the church, and it's been there since the organ was built in 1929. It's never broken to my knowledge. You turn it on and it just generates air pressure, just a big blower. So the air comes down these ducts, just like the ductwork in your house where your air conditioning heat come through. The ductwork comes down from the attic and it starts to feed into the organ, and then different ductwork, air pipes basically move the air to different parts of the organ because each rank has to have an air supply. So it becomes rather complicated when you start looking in the organ all the way, the pathways the air goes. So when you look inside the actual insides of an organ, it's like, wow, there's a lot going on here, and it takes a lot of careful design and careful layout of pipe work, because you have to be able to supply pipes to, over 3,000 pipes have to have a source of air. Plus you have to have room for the pipes, room for the controls and the switches and the magnets. So it's a complicated, they used to say that the two most complicated man-made inventions before the Industrial Revolution were a pipe organ and a wristwatch.